Morning. Welcome to Yin. Let's we'll start today a little differently. So you'll come to hands and knees, tabletop. We're going to start with movement for our Yin practice. So once you get to tabletop, we're actually going to start with cat cow and just start to warm up the spine. This can be a nice way to settle in on your mat, especially if you have a lot going on. So on an inhale, reach the heart forward, lift the tail. And on the exhale, round the spine, chin in toward the chest. And then keep going at your own pace. You don't have to stay with me. You're trying to find your own breath rhythm. So the length of the inhale is the length of the first pose, cow. And the length of the exhale is the second pose, cat. Maybe the eyes are closed if you're comfortable with that. Once you start settling into your breath rhythm, take a moment to check in with yourself. See how you're feeling, how your body's feeling. Maybe emotionally, how you're feeling without judgment, just identifying it. And trying to figure out what you need out of your practice today. How do you want to feel at the end of this? And what decisions do you need to make to get there? One more cycle forward and back. Feeling the spine warm up even more. And you'll come back to a neutral spine tabletop. So you could use blocks for this next one. If you have them, grab them. It's just an easier way to transition. You'll bring the blocks up to the tallest height. So they're like big towers if you have two. And you can do this without blocks, not a big deal. Move the blocks, widen the blocks to the outer edges of the mat if you're using one. Step the right foot forward between the blocks. So it's just a low lunge, but the chest is lifted if the hands are on the blocks. If you're not using blocks because you don't have blocks, then just stay up on the fingertips and try to get the chest up as high as you can. Blocks are nice because you can lift the chest up a little bit higher. It's a different area of the hip, but either way, you're getting into the hips. And you could tuck the back toes and scoot that back knee a little farther back, but try not to go as deep as you can into the pose. So if you feel like you don't have any room left in the pose, then back off a little bit, see where you can soften. And either look down the bridge of the nose at one spot on the floor ahead of you, or close the eyes. If you close the eyes and the chest starts to collapse too much and you find yourself lying on that right thigh, then maybe come back up and keep the eyes softly open. Stay with the same breath you started with. Starting with the hips today, which is typically the tightest area of most bodies. Take some time and some work to start to get in there, open things up. We'll stay on one hip for a while before we transition to the other side. That'll also give you an opportunity to see the difference between one hip versus the other. You might find that one is more open. And if the back knee starts bothering you at all, definitely take some time to put some padding underneath it, a towel, a blanket, whatever you have lying around. And you'll start to push the hips back. They tend to go forward the longer you're in a hold like that. Take the right hand with the block, if you're using one, inside the right foot and heel toe the right foot all the way out to the outer edge of the mat. So it's a wider lunge. And then bring the right hand, so it's underneath the shoulder. So same thing, but now we've widened the foot, getting into a different spot in the hip. Chest can stay lifted. Stay here for a few breaths. Just see how this is feeling. Listening to the sound of your own breath. And if you'd like to bring the chest down lower, you can. What's nice with the blocks is you have more options. So you could start to stack the blocks. You could do one on the lowest height, one on top of that on the medium height, or the lowest height stacked. See which one is better. It just goes right underneath the chest. Maybe you bring the forearms down, closing the eyes and staying here. Just finding a place where you're not all the way in, giving yourself room to explore. And if at any point you feel like you want to go lower, you can go lower. Forearms could eventually end up on the mat if that's really easy for you. And you'll start to come back up onto the hands if you went lower. Take the blocks back to a higher height. Move that right foot back to center. Shift the hips back until you can straighten the front leg, coming into a version of half splits. I'm lowering the blocks because my body's telling me that the hands need to be lower. Push that heel forward a few inches and then stay here. So that front leg doesn't need to be all the way straight. You can have a bend in the knee. You're just trying to feel where you get a nice opening in the backside of the right leg. And the lower the hands go, the deeper into the pose you go. So if you're trying to find your way out of it, lift the hands and that'll help lift the chest. If you want to go deeper, then bring the hands lower or more forward ahead of the shoulders. Start to shift forward onto the sole of the right foot. Bring the hands and the blocks forward, probably lifting the blocks up to the tallest height so you can lift the chest. Right knee comes back underneath the hip, and you'll step the left foot forward up between the blocks, starting with this lunge with the lift in the chest. So this will feel really fresh because we were on that first side for quite a while, getting into the hips. So take your time coming into it. Keep the chest lifted as high as you can. Those blocks help on the highest height. You'll have an opportunity to go lower in the next pose. Maybe you look down the bridge of the nose, focusing on one spot. Maybe you close the eyes. And you'll start to back the hips up just enough so you can get that left hand inside the foot, heel toe the left foot out to the outer edge of the mat. Widen the stance of the hands. If you feel like you're right on top of that right kneecap, tuck the toes, scoot the knee as far back as you can so you're right above the kneecap. And then stay here, keep the chest lifted, give yourself a moment to settle into this shape, very similar to the last one. But now you've widened the stance and you'll feel the hip opening in a different place in the hip. You may be just right where you are right now. So maybe you keep the chest lifted. If you do want to come down lower, you can start to lower the blocks to whatever height makes the most sense. It could be in a different place than the first side. You're looking for a similar sensation, which means the chest might be higher or lower to get there. And you'll start to come back up onto the hands. Adjust the blocks if you have them built a different way so that you can lift the chest up. Heel toe the left foot in toward the center of the mat. Start to shift the hips back, walking the blocks back, lifting the toes on the left foot. Push the heel forward a couple of inches and starting to straighten the leg as much as comfortable for you, which could be a bend in the knee. Maybe you lower the hands, finding a gentle version of half splits in your body on this side. You'll start to shift forward onto the sole of the left foot, bringing the blocks forward, probably lifting them up to the tallest height. Bring that left knee back underneath you and then come to seated on the mat. So bring the feet over to one side, have the blocks nearby, legs out in front of you. And then shift forward onto your mat if you're using one. Both blocks are nearby. We're coming into supported bridge. So you'll come down onto your back, walk the feet in, press into the feet, lift the hips up, slide one or two blocks underneath you. So 2, if you're really comfortable with back bends, lowest height, you can lift and spread the chest. Or if that's too high, just find a spot that works. What's nice about coming up a little bit higher, especially after that last sequence with the hips, is you start to feel that opening across the top of the hips, which we already did in the last sequence of poses. So this should feel somewhat familiar as you're opening up the upper back and spine area. But always keeping it gentle, whatever that is in your body. So feel free to adjust if you went up too high or too low at any point in the pose. Keeping the chin away from the chest, not moving the head side to side, always keeping the nose pointing up. Eyes can be open or closed. And let's extend that right leg forward, just the right leg, heel resting down on the mat. If it's too much, you can always bring that right foot back in. Then we'll start with one leg at a time, and then you'll have an opportunity to do both legs at the same time. Let's do one at a time, focusing on each side individually first. And you'll start to walk that right foot back in. Transitioning sides, take a moment with both feet on the mat first. And then when you feel ready, extend that left leg forward, heel down on the mat. See how that feels. And start to walk that left foot back in. If you'd like, you can do both feet extended out in front of you, or you could just keep both feet on the mat. So try both legs extended out in front of you, see how that feels. Trying to keep the shape of the back bend while also feeling that nice opening at the top of the hips, front of the pelvis. Let's start to walk the feet back in if they're extended out in front of you. Just staying here in supported bridge, still keeping that lift of the chest. You'll press into the feet, lift the hips up, slide one block and then the other block, if you're using two, out from underneath you. Rest with the hips down on the mat. Just stay here. Feel it with the eyes closed is nice. So that way you can just feel the body settle. Hips start to readjust to being back down on the mat. Still feeling that back bend in the body. So the lower back is its natural curve, lifting away from the mat. Keep the feet hip width distance apart. Left foot stays down on the mat. Hug the right knee in toward the chest. And here's where you'll feel that spreading of the lower back and a widening of the back of the hips. Just always a nice release after a longer, deeper back bend. Set the right foot down on the mat, Hug the left knee in toward the chest. Keep that right foot where it is. Several long, deep breaths here, in and out through the nose. Set the left foot back down onto the mat. Hug the right knee in toward the chest. This time, extend the left leg out in front of you, heel resting down on the mat. You'll take this right knee, cross it over the body, slowly making your way into a twist. So as you come over, you'll need to shift onto the side of that left hip, trying to get the head, the left hip, and the left foot in line. Right arm can reach back behind you, and the gaze can go over the right shoulder. Not your deepest twist. Find one that's part of the way in. So over halfway, maybe like 3/4 of the way or less. You'll start to make your way onto your back again, walking the feet in so they're on the mat. Once you're center on your back, bring the knees in toward the chest, hang on to each knee with each hand, keeping the knees and the feet together. Just take some circles going in the same direction, guiding the knees, countering that twist. And then switch the direction of your circle. Same thing, just going the other way. Feet come back down to the mat. Hug the left knee in toward the chest. Start to extend the right leg forward. Just stay here. See how this feels. Then you'll start to take this left knee over the body, crossing it over, shifting onto the side of the right hip, and reaching that left arm out to the side of the shoulder. Maybe the gaze goes too. So that left knee is probably going to be lifted way away from the floor. You can always put a block or a bolster or something underneath it if you want more support. And start to make your way onto your back, soles of the feet to the mat. Bring the knees in toward the chest, hang on to each knee. Same thing we did before, but see if you can start the circles going the other way. So not the way you naturally want to go. Not a big deal if you did the same direction or you're not sure. But there's usually one direction that we tend to go to first. It's nice to switch it up if we can. And now go the other way. And you can feel how when you move the knees, the hips shift underneath you on the mat. Different points of the hips press down as you move the knees. And you'll start to set the feet down onto the mat. Roll over to one side. Use the hands to press yourself up to seated. And once you get there, have a strap nearby, maybe a block too, just next to the hips. So with the legs extended out in front of you, bring the right foot in, step the right foot over the left leg. Then maybe you take the hand on the outer right ankle bone and move the right foot over to the left. So you're working towards stacking the knees, the right knee on top of the left knee. And you might stay here. This is half shoelace. Some of you are comfortable with leaning over to the left and bending this bottom leg underneath you. Still with stacked knees, just make sure you're not sitting on the feet and the hips are even underneath you. Another option with the block is you could sit up on top of a block. So if you feel like you're almost there, but you need just a little bit more help, sit up on top of a block. All right, let's grab your strap, unroll it if it's rolled. Grab the strap in the left hand, reach the left arm up overhead, hang that strap down between the shoulder blades, keeping the chest lifted and the gaze forward. And then right arm comes out to the side, thumb side down. Bring the right arm behind the back. Start to work the hand up the back. Keep it easy. Once you find a place where you're feeling a shoulder opening, but it's not as deep as you can go, grab the bottom of the strap. Some of you might be able to clasp the hands, no problem. If that's you, skip the strap. You don't need to use it. But for most of us, the strap gives us a little bit more flexibility to keep this in a gentler space. So chest is lifted, hips are going down, knees are going down. You can stay just like this. You could also start to fold forward. That puts more weight onto the hip opening. So you only go as far as you're comfortable with. Maybe you just tip forward a little bit, knowing that once you get the momentum going in that direction, you'll naturally fall in. Try not to go 100% deep into the pose. Giving yourself that space and time to go deeper over time without any effort. Sometimes we often find ourselves in this position where we're forcing things on our mat, poses, even off the mat. This is a good practice to get the body set up, put some effort at the beginning, and then just see where it goes. Letting things unfold. And slowly start to lift the chest and the head if you folded forward. Keep the strap in one hand, but release the arms and let the shoulders be heavy. That was a deep stretch for the upper body. You'll bring the hands back behind you. Lengthen the bottom leg first and then the top leg. And let's do a counter pose. Walk the feet in so they're on the soles of the feet are wide on the mat. Windshield wipers, knees going side to side. And you'll start to make your way back to seated with the legs extended out in front of you. This time, sole of the left foot comes into the mat. You'll step the left foot over the right leg. Grab onto that outer left ankle bone. See if the foot goes to the side a little bit more, working towards stacking the knees. Welcome to stay here. Don't feel like you have to do the same thing on each side. Or lean over to the right, bend the right leg, getting even on the hips. You could always prop the hips up on a block, but make sure you're not sitting on that on either foot. So grab your strap in the right hand, reach the right arm all the way up overhead, hang the strap between the shoulder blades, keeping the gaze forward. So sometimes everything wants to collapse, the chest and the gaze down toward the mat. Keep everything lifted to get set up. Left arm comes out to the side, thumb side down. Bring that left arm behind the back and start to work the hand up the back. When you find an easy place to be, grab onto the bottom of the strap, sit up tall. Maybe you stay here. Maybe you start to lean forward a little bit, closing the eyes, and then just seeing where you end up at the end of the hold. Trusting in your body that it knows where to take you. And slowly start to lift the head and the chest, coming back up, release the arms, strap down by the side. Let them be heavy so you can start to feel that release. Bring the hands back behind you, straighten the bottom leg, then the top leg, and we'll come back into windshield wipers on this side. So sitting reclined, feet wide, make sure you have enough space to bring the knees side to side. That's a big pose that we've been working up toward. We did the full thing, legs and the arms. Legs were definitely open. Upper body, that's a tough one to get into. So it's nice to do it with the strap so you can just take it at your own pace. Okay, so legs out in front of you, coming back to seated. We'll do a seated forward fold. You can do this with or without props. If you're doing it without props, you'll just simply fold over the legs, let the head and the neck go. I love palms up so you're not reaching for anything and it feels really gentle. Or use your props if you have them. That always feels good. You can do some kind of stack of a bolster, blanket, bring it all in. And then once you start to fold forward, if there's a gap between the head and the props that you have underneath you, that's where you can start to fill it in with a block or two. So rounding of the spine's okay here. Don't feel like it has to be straight. See where you can soften, let the feet go, the hands go. And you'll start to make your way back up to seated. If you're using props, set those off to the side. And we'll start to set up for Shavasana. So you could take the bolster if you have one and place it underneath the knees. If you have a blanket or something else, you can use that underneath the head as a pillow. Then if you have something to cover the eyes, definitely grab it. That's always nice for Shavasana. You'll come on down onto your back. Let the feet go a little wider than hip width distance. Let the toes turn out. Get that pillow so it's supporting the neck and the head if you're using a pillow. And then when you bring the arms down by the sides, palms facing up, make sure you're not touching anything else. So if there's blocks or a strap or anything out of the way, just shoo that away. Same thing with the feet. That helps the nervous system start to reset. And then close the eyes. Take a deep breath in through the nose. Exhale out of the mouth, let it go. Shavasana. So body goes back to breathing on its own. Arms can stay right where they are, palms facing up so the chest falls open. Or you could bring the hands to the body, somewhere on the torso, one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly, or two hands in one place. And we'll start to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Reach the arms overhead, stretch out through the legs, getting long, waking up the body again. And start to walk the feet in, bending the knees. Roll over to your right side. Stay on the pillow if you're using one, or cradle the head and the arm. Eyes stay closed. You just stay here for a few breaths. So you're on your back for a while. We roll over onto our side. Before we come all the way up, you start to feel everything inside of you shift, getting ready for a little bit more movement. Then using the left hand, press yourself up to your meditation seat, move anything out of the way, or use it to prop the hips up. So you sit up tall with the eyes closed, coming back into the body, back into yourself, feeling this change that's happened on your mat, coming back into a more balanced version of who you are, and taking this with you into the rest of your day. Bring the hands together, slight bow of the head, honor and acknowledge your heart and spirit, your inner intelligence, as well as everyone around you. Connecting with people on this level. Bring the head back up, blink open the eyes. Namaste. Good work today. That was definitely a deep yin class. We held all of those poses for at least 3 minutes. A couple of them we did 5 minutes, which is standard for yin. So hope you enjoyed that. Hope you feel great and have a wonderful day.